Hey guys, Griffith here, and today we're going to talk about exposure. All right, good day guys. As you can see, it's a little bit wet out today, so I got my camera condoms on, keep them dry while I shoot in the wetness. And we're going to talk about exposure and the exposure triangle. So there's three things about the exposure triangle, three components, and this is really the foundation of photography: exposure. If you don't have an exposed image, you don't have an image. So there's shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. So shutter speed, as I'm sure you've heard before, is the amount of time your shutter is open and closed. So a really fast shutter speed, such as 1/2000th of a second, is open and closed real fast and doesn't let a lot of light in. A real slow shutter speed, such as 1 second, lets a lot of light in. Aperture also, which is found in the lens, is the amount of light your lens allows the light to come into the camera. So a really small number means a really big opened up aperture. So 2.08 is a pretty wide, big aperture. Also, on the other end, a really big number like f/22 or f/16 is a really small opening in your hole in your lens, not letting as much light in. So shutter speed and aperture kind of accommodate each other. And the third thing we want to talk about is ISO. ISO is how sensitive your camera's sensor is to the light. So you can have a higher ISO would be used to shoot in low light situations, but on the flip side, higher the ISO, the more noise you're going to introduce to your image. So if you want a well exposed image, you got to have your shutter speed and aperture accommodating each other, and then you can set your ISO lower or higher depending on the light availability. So out here, you know, it's raining, but it's pretty bright out still. So we're going to take a photo of this sign here, and we're going to show you how shutter speed and aperture kind of need to go hand in hand. And light in cameras is referred to as stops, so stops of light. There's apertures have stops of light, shutter speeds have stops of light. So we're going to shoot at 3/20th of a second at a 2.8 aperture, and that should give us a pretty good exposure. ISO is 100. So we're going to take a shot of this sign, and the background should be pretty nice and out of focus with a nice in focus sign. So you can see the background's pretty out of focus, sign's in focus. I wanted that effect, that's why I used the lower number of the aperture, 2.8. Well, now I want more in focus in the background, so I'm going to need to have a higher aperture. So what that's going to do is it's not going to allow as much light in. So let's bring the aperture up 3 stops. So that's 4, from 2.8 to 4 to 5.6 to 8. Now we're at f8. That's 3 stops higher than f2.8. So that means we're going to have to also drop our shutter speed down 3 stops or make it open longer. Okay, that's 1/40th of a second. That's pretty low to handhold on a zoom lens, but we'll see how it goes. The aperture or the exposure should be relatively the same, but like I said, we wanted more in focus in the background, so we had to have a higher aperture but a lower shutter speed. So let's see how this looks. Okay, so 1/40th of a second, f8. Exposure looks pretty much the same, but as you can see, I had to have a slower shutter speed to accommodate that higher aperture. So exposure triangle, everything goes hand in hand. We want to play with the ISO. Let's bump the ISO up 3 stops. 3, here we go. So here we are, and we're going to go ahead and talk about, we want to have a faster shutter speed, but we want a smaller aperture. So we want the f8, we want to keep the f8, but we want to bring the shutter speed back up to 3/20th of a second. So how do you do that? Well, now you got to make your camera more sensitive to light. So you're going to let less light in, but your camera's going to be more sensitive to light, so you're going to get the same exposure as you had with a 1/40th of a second, 1/40th of a second at f8. But now we're going to bring it back up 3 stops to 1/320th of a second. Keep the f8, but we're going to bring our ISO up 3 stops to not f800, ISO 800. So ISO 800, we're gonna get the same exposure with a faster shutter speed. So then when it goes, okay, that looks pretty good. The only thing you gotta take in consideration, the higher your ISO, the more noise you're gonna introduce to your image. So you wanna keep your ISO as low as possible to get a properly exposed image, to get a cleaner image. So hope this helps. Thanks for watching. Chase Griffith Photography, griffphoto.com. See you later.